And welcome to the lab walkthrough. I'm ready. Put me in, coach, put me in. Just as a reminder of what this is, I'm going to walk through the lab fairly quickly for a tutorial-like basis on all the individual components. Check out the previous 4 or 5 videos that led up to the lab where I explain each part and how it works. Because in this walkthrough, I'm just going to go through the tasks fairly quickly just to confirm all the pieces for your benefit and for mine too. I'm having a good time doing it. All right, so without further ado, here is the walkthrough. So the first thing I'm going to do is log into the vSphere client. And I'm also going to hit F11 just to put my screen full screen. And then we'll log in as administrator at vsphere.local and we'll supply the lab password and we are in. Before I go crazy and start configuring everything, I'm just going to do a quick sanity check. I'm just going to take tinyVM2. It's connected to a port group on PG-ESXi2-switch1, which is a port group on the local switch. That's dandy. And if we go to ESXi2 and click on configure, and then go down to virtual switches. I just want to see what I'm dealing with. So our standard switch is here, no surprises. And then our switch 1 is here. Great, great, great. And there's one virtual machine. Fantastic. All right, so that's our starting point. So let's go to the icon for networking. And I'll click on the Nevada Data Center, right click, and then hover on Distributed Switch and click on New Distributed Switch. I'm going to go for the VM Switch 1 replacement first. So that guy we're going to call DS VMs. Click on next. Latest version is great. I only need one uplink for that. And the port group that we're going to use based on the task is DPG for distributed port group space VMs. All right. Boom. And done. Next, I'm going to bring in some hosts. So I'm going to expand the data center so I can see that distributed switch. There it is. I'll click on it and right click. And then from the drop down, click on Add and Manage Hosts. I want to add hosts, so I'll leave that radio button selected. Click on Next. Click on the plus symbol, and the lab said to bring in ESXi 1, 2, and 3, so we'll do that. Click on OK, and Next. All right, VM NICs. Based on the lab, we are going to bring in VM NIC 4. So I will click on that, which is currently associated with the local vSwitch 1, and I will click on Assign Uplink. I'll put a check in the checkbox saying I want this to happen to the other 2 ESXi hosts as well. Click on OK. Scroll down to verify that VMNIC 4 is going to be assigned to this new distributed switch on each ESXi host. Looks good. And we'll click on Next. I'm not going to migrate any VM kernel adapters because I don't have any VM kernel adapters associated with vSwitch 1 and any of its port groups. So we'll click on Next. And I do want to bring over the VMs. And so I'm going to grab the network adapter on tinyVM1, click on Assign, and assign it to the new port group. Go to ESXi2, it has one VM, grab its network adapter, assign it to the new port group, and the same thing for the little VM sitting on ESXi3. Click on the network adapter, assign to the new port group, click on that new port group, click OK. That looks good to me. Click on Next, and finish. All right, that is task number 1. Migrate from vSwitch 1 to the new distributed switch called VMs. Done. And if we want to take a peek, we can go back to Host and Clusters view, go to ESXi2, and there is the distributed switch right there with the 1 VM, and there's the uplink. Fantastic. All right, back to networking. One more distributed switch to go. So we'll right-click on the data center in Nevada, hover over Distributed Switch, and click on New Distributed Switch. We're going to call this one, looking at the lab task, we're going to call this DS space MGMT for the management distributed switch that we're going to use for our management connections. Click on Next. We're going to take the latest version. How many uplinks do we need? We need 2 uplinks, so we'll put 2 there. And the port group is called DPG space MGMT. That's our distributed port group, which is associated with this brand new distributed switch. And we'll click on Next. All right, and finish. Then we'll right-click on that brand new distributed switch. We'll select Add and Manage Hosts. We'll bring in our 3 ESXi hosts to start using that distributed switch. And that is Larry, Mo, and Curly. And click on OK. and then we'll click on Next. And then it's asking us which VMNICs are we going to use, and that is VMNIC 0 and VMNIC 1. So we're going to click on VMNIC 1. We'll click on Assign Uplink. We'll check the box that says apply this to the other two ESXi hosts as well. And we'll do the same thing for VMNIC 0. Oh, I meant to do 0 first. It's not going to matter, but I just saw 1. I thought, oh, that's the first one. VMNIC 0 and VMNIC 1 need to go over. So I'll click on VMNIC 0, which has not yet been assigned. Click on Assign Uplink. Click on Apply. And away we go. All right, so they're both assigned. Looks good. As far as the actual name, VMNIC 0 is going to be called Uplink 2, and 1 is called Uplink 1. Perfectly fine. It won't matter what order they're in because they both go to the same physical VLAN on the outside world. So I'm going to scroll down to make sure I got both of those on each switch. Yep, looks good. They're both there. VMNIC 0 and VMNIC 1 on all three. We'll click on Next. And now it's saying, whoa, you just, you're taking away the uplinks from vSwitch 0, and these VM kernel adapters are going to be stranded if you don't migrate them. So I'm going to take everyone that has the yellow mark there and say, yep, I'll go ahead and assign you to the new port group. And we'll apply that to the other two ESXi hosts as well. And we'll grab the other VM kernel adapter, VMK1, and assign port group. We'll assign that also to the new port group that we just created and apply that to ESXi 2 and 3 as well. And click on OK. And then, by George, I'm going to verify my work because I've been bitten by this a few times. I'm just going to scroll down because if you don't check that box, you might miss one. And then it's a problem. So I've got VMK 0 and 1 on ESXi 1, on ESXi 2, and also on ESXi 3 that are going to be migrated over to the new distributed switch port group. All right, we'll click on Next. And I don't have any virtual machines that were part of vSwitch 0 on any port group, so I don't need to migrate virtual machines for this distributed switch. We'll click on Next, and there are 3 hosts that are going to be getting this distributed switch. There's 2 physical uplinks on each for a total of 6 adapters. And on each host, each of the 3 hosts, there's 2 VM kernel adapters that are going to be reassigned, and that's why that shows a 6 right there. And we'll click on Finish. And then cross our fingers. I shouldn't worry, but I'm always concerned when I'm dealing with network management that if we lose oh yeah, looks like it worked great. If you lose connectivity, then you have to go back and troubleshoot, and that's not always the best. So we'll go back to our host and clusters view. Let's grab ESXi 3 as an example. They should all be the same. If we go to Configure and then Virtual Switches, there's our management switch with the 2 VM kernel adapters. And there's the 2 uplinks. Fantastic. This all looks really good. And that should be the same view on ESXi 1, which it is. 2 VM kernel adapters and 2 uplinks. And ESXi 2 as well. 2 VM kernel adapters and 2 uplinks. And if, just for grins, the tiny VM is associated with the VM's distributed switch, let's just power it on and test it real quick just to verify it's working as well. So we'll right click and go to Power and Power On. As that powers up, we'll click on Launch Remote Console for that beautiful little lightweight virtual machine. And there it is. Let's just do a ping out to google.com. And that verifies a whole bunch, including internet connectivity, which implies IP addressing and NAT and everything else. So it is good to go. I'm going to go ahead and shut that down. Let's do a shutdown. That's a graceful shutdown. And I'll close that console. And that's the walkthrough. Now, while I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit of cleanup on ESXi 1, 2, and 3 because we have a switch that we don't need, like this vSwitch 1. Oh, what's it got here? Oh, it's got a template. Let me go ahead and, I don't think I need that though. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it. Say remove. Are you sure? Yes. And vSwitch 1 is gone. Here's vSwitch 0. It's not being used. We'll go ahead and remove it. Say yes. And we've just removed all traces of the standard switch off ESXi 1. I'm going to do the same thing on ESXi 2 and 3 as well. So for vSwitch 0, we'll just delete it. And vSwitch 1, not using it, we'll delete it. And same thing for ESXi 3. We'll go down to the right switch, vSwitch 1, delete it. And also vSwitch 0, and delete it. All right, so on ESXi 1, 2, and 3, all we're using is the distributed switches, and there's not a standard switch to be found. All right, I just wanted to clean that up a little bit, and now we have. So thanks for joining me in this walkthrough of the hands-on lab regarding a distributed switch, and I look forward to seeing you, my friend, in the next set of videos. I've stepped through each and every